Hey everybody, thank you so much for joining. Today we are basically going to be doing a live stream where I will be solving this quest, and I'm just going to reach out to other people to join in. So let me just reach out to everyone to join in. Okay, awesome. So let's just get started in solving the quest. So this quest I'm going to be solving today is the hooks of change quest. It's basically we trying to convert a couple of components into React class components. So we are into functional components from React class components. So we are basically saying, hey, we have this messy legacy code built with React class components, and we want to take it from that class component into functional components. So if you're familiar with React, you know that we have class components, we have functional components. Class components are components that can handle states, that can handle effects, but functional components, on the other hand, can only render UI. But what if, with the introduction of React hooks, we can actually render both states, render both effects in functional components. So that's basically what we are going to be doing today. And that's basically what the hooks of change quest entails. So let's just get right into it. Okay, so the first thing we need to do, of course, is to say hi to Ness and run stats.sh, which I have already run. I ran stats.sh in my command line before starting this quest, and I wrote done, and Ness went ahead to give me the instructions. So the instructions here is basically for me to refactor the code in the header.js component to make it a functional component and open a PR when done. So to be able to carry out this quest, you actually need to have completed the getting started to quest, the setup quest, so that you can actually have access to this. Because if you do not have the anything code in your PC, you would not be able to carry out this particular task. So I've gone ahead to start my Docker container. So I went into the Docker container and I ran Docker compose up so that I can get every single thing started. So I can get every single thing started. So if you can see, I have my node, I have my MongoDB node container running. I have my AnyFront front end running. I have my backend also, which is a node running. So this is my feed for my MongoDB. So to confirm that this is actually working. So if we run to localhost 3001, I should find my front end. And if I go to localhost 3000/API, just to be sure, /API/items, I should see that the items I have. So that means my backend actually works. So you have to confirm that this is actually working before you can actually do anything. So the next step is to actually solve the quest. So if you go back to what Ness instructed us to do, Ness said that we should refactor the header.js component to make it a functional component and open a PR when done. So the first thing we will need to do to solve this quest, we need to head over to our terminal. Then proceed to actually creating a new branch, because for every single push, for every single change we made, we need to create a branch and make those changes there, then ask Ness for review. So I'm just going to do a a git checkout -b, which, telling me that, hey, I want to check out to a new branch. So I can call this hooks of change B2. Let's just say hooks of change solution. So if I do this, you can see that I have been switched to a new branch. That's basically all we need to do here. Basically need to switch. I've been switched to a new branch. So whatever changes I made will be sent to this branch, and I have to create a PR that Nest is going to review, which is why Nest said here that open a PR and when you're done. So basically going to do that. Now, next up is to actually go into the code aspect. Let me just make my editor a bit visible. So the next up is, according to what Nest said, she said we should refactor the code in the header.js component to make it a functional component and open a PR where done. So we need to find where our header.js component, and in any front-end application, you would know that the components, any React application, the components are stored in the SRC folder. So if we go to the SRC folder, we can see component, constant, IMGs, reducers, etc. But what we are really focused about for this particular task is what's inside the component. So if I head over to components and I head over to header.js, I'll find the code for what we're going to do. So here we are asked to change the header components, refactor it into a functional component. Functional components are components that can only render UI, are only used for rendering UI. Before React hooks were created, can only render UI, and that's basically what they do. Unlike class components, where you can handle states, you can handle basically anything you want to do in class components. Like, for example, this is an example of a functional component. This is an example of a functional component. You can see that it only renders UI here without React hooks. Now, for this also, but this is not the component we need to change. The component we are changing is this component here, right? The class component called header. Now, this is going to be pretty straightforward and very easy to do. So the next thing, since this component does not handle states, right? It doesn't handle states in particular. All we need to do is to replicate. Okay. So I hope everybody can see my screen properly. So all we need to do is actually to replicate exactly what we have here. Replicate it to this, right? So that's basically what we are going to do. So that's basically what we are going to do. So to solve this, it's quite easy, right? You just need to understand how functional components work, which is what I'm going to do here. So I'm just going to create a const, which is basically similar to how this is. It's a constant. A component does not change, so we use const basically. So header. Now we pass an equal to sign because we want to assign that particular header, constant to a component. So we run an arrow function, you do this, then you do this. So this is the base structure for our class, for our functional components. Now, next up, the next thing we need to do is to return. So just like we have here, we need to be able to return. So React knows that, hey, we want to render a JSX file. We want to render a JSX syntax. So JSX syntax has to be inside the return statement. So you run a return, and this. So this is the base structure for our header, our new header components, our refactored header components. Now, the next thing we need to do is to assign props, right? So the way this is done, you can see that the way this is done, props are being passed here. But for clarity and for having writing very, very quality code, I personally like to destructure my props. So what I mean by destructuring is exposing them, creating the constant, exposing them, and passing them to the props array, to the props object. So this is how I do it. So I do a const here, So in functional components, whatever function you need to create has to be before the return statement. The return statement can only handle, should only handle, what do you call it? Should only handle JSX, and maybe when you need to pass this, pass props. But if you need to write any custom function, you need to destructure props, do it before the return statement. So that's basically what I'm going to do now. So I'm going to do a const, call this, let's just pass this. So we're destructuring, right? So what props do we have here? So the first prop we have, from what I can see, is current user. So we only have one prop here, which is current user, right? So that's the only prop we have here. So that's basically what I'm going to do now. I'm going to just call this current user, then equals to props. I've seen props here, right? So this should take props too. So this would allow us have access to, so this will allow us have access, direct access to our props. We will not need to do this.props.current user, we do not need to do all of those. We already have access to our props here, right? So the next thing we'll need to do is to render every single thing we have here. So I'm just going to copy this, right? I'm just going to copy this, just this. I'm going to maybe do an X, you'll copy this, and I'm going to then return everything here. And I'm going, since we don't need this again, this is no longer what we need anymore. We don't need this anymore. I'm going to just go ahead and take this off. So now, the reason why this is actually complaining is because we haven't assigned the current user yet, which is what we're going to do next. So we find where we have the prop definition. So all we need to do is to just cancel this. So you need to delete this, then delete this, which is the beauty of destructuring your props. You don't need to do this dot props anymore. Then come here, and basically that's pretty much it. That's pretty much all we need to do. So let me just save this to be sure that everything works. Then come back here. Let's go back to our code. And if we run, if you so if you press refresh it, you can see that this did not break, right? You can see that this did not break. Everything still looks exactly how it was before before basically anything. This exactly still looks exactly how it was. Now, the next step is to go back to our code and just make sure that everything looks clean, right? Everything looks clean. Now let's see if this, okay. So every single thing here looks clean. So this is going to be our first PR. We're going to now send the PR to Ness and make her, fully review it for us. So what we need to do now is to come here. Let me just zoom in more. Come here, let me zoom in more, okay? So next up is to come here and run, let's do a GS. So sorry, a git status, I use an alias, a git status. So git tells us that, yes, we have this file modified and we need to commit it to be able to do anything. So one thing I used to advise people is before, based on the fact that this code base has linting supported, has predefined linting, you have to match that linting or else the linting check would fail. So the best way to do this is every time you change something, before you send a PR, please run yarn run format. Now, sorry, yarn run, let me just be sure this is correct. Oh, I need to move into my front-end directory. Okay. Okay. So yeah, so now we are confirmed, like we're in the front-end directory. Now, if I run yarn run format, now this command only works inside the front end. So if you run it at the back end, it probably would not work. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it would not work. So if I run yarn run format, it automatically, links the whole file, make sure that every single thing is linted and formatted according to the way it's been specified in the code base. Now, if I run a JS, our app is still modified, so we need to do a git commit. A git commit. The fastest way to write a git commit is to do add a -m flag, then put your apostrophes and write the commit message. So let's say refactor header component. I love writing descriptive commit messages, so the person reviewing my code knows exactly what I'm doing or what I did there. So refactor header components into writing header components into a functional component. So, sorry, I need to git add. So before you commit, you need to actually git add. So that's why Git is telling me I need to add a file. So git add dot to solve this. Then if we run this thing again, so it's added it. And the next thing we need to do is to git push. So git push origin, which is the original GitHub Git repository, then hooks of change solution. So if I should run this now, it has made the commit for me. I need to create a pull request so Nest can review. So if I come here, copy this link, go back to my browser, and click on this, paste this link here. Now I can automatically create a pull request here. So all I need to do is to add a description. So all I need to just do here is to come here. Since my pull request, my commit name is very, very descriptive, I can just copy this and add this here. So next up is to create the pull request. Now that I've created the pull request, all the checks need to run. Now, Nest, of course, Vanessa has checked my PR. She saw your PR, reviewing it now. If you go back to the chat, she's like, okay, give me a minute to review your PR. So we wait until the checks are complete. Then we see if we meet the specifications that has been specified by the GitHub workflow and the tests that's specified by the engineers to be sure our code works exactly how it's expected to be. So fingers crossed. So while we wait, we keep on waiting. This usually takes like a minute, so we have to wait for like a minute. And let me see the comments. If you guys have any comments, let me just confirm that. Okay, so it seems our checks have passed. So we did a great job with solving this, right? We did a really good job with solving this. Okay, so I'm just checking out your comments, and okay, just saw that okay, you guys have had issues viewing the size of my text, which is why I increased. So sorry about that. So here we've done a really great job, right? We've done an awesome job in solving the first part of the quest, which is just changing a simple component into a functional component, class component rather. So what I will need to do here, based on what Ness has said, great, will go ahead and merge the PR. Now I just need to click on merge, click on confirm merge, and yeah, pretty much that's good. So the next thing we need to do is to go back to Ness and see what she said. Now, the next thing she's instructing us to do is to please modify your comments, input your JS to use hooks and open another PR. So this is where it gets more interesting. This is the, where we actually need to use a React hook, right? So just to be sure we are on track, let me just bring my video here so you guys can see me, just to make sure that we are on track. Let's make sure we are on track. Make sure we're on track. We need to go back to our code, right? And look for the comments input.js file. That's basically what we need to do right now. So I'm just going to go here, just going to go to item comments input.js. So this is where it gets even more interesting, right? Let me just hide my sidebar so I can see everything well. So Vanessa wants us, or Ness wants us to do the same thing we've done for this particular component, which is the comment input component. So this is the component that handles this. So if I click on this and I clicked on and I add a comment, hello, my name, nice shots, nice shots. Just add this, nice shots. Okay. So that's basically what that component does. It handles, typing comment and posting comments. So it basically handles this entire. So this is the components we need to refactor. So we have to be careful, else we break something. So the first thing we need to do, like I said, is to create, the constant, call it comments input. Then, we are assigning this constant to something, which is the component. So we run our arrow function. This is the basic form, right? Just like we did the last time. And we pass in our props here because we want our component to actually have props, right? The next thing is to use the return statement. Next thing is to use the return statement. So let's take this a bit inside just so we meet the specifications. Yeah, so the next thing is to do return statement. Now, we have way more props in this particular component. So I'm just going to destructure, just to carry out the first part of the structuring, then pass it to props. And now let's go down here. So here we have a couple of things that are like, really, really nice. So we have states here. So this particular component has state. So this is where the React hook becomes really, really interesting. And we also have a function here, which is this function is going to be before the return statement. And this is where we are setting the state based on what is inside the inputs, like what the person inputs. We also have another function called create comments. And then we have the actual component, which, consumes all the functions we've written. So we have to take this bit by bit. So the first thing we need to do here is to find our props, right? So we have, just to be sure, we have a slug prop. This is the prop, the slug. We have a slug prop, and we have, what else? So we just basically we have a current user prop, right? So we have two props here. We have a current user prop. We have a slug prop. And we also have a on submit prop. So we have three props here on submit, slug, and current user. So let's just get right into it. Okay, so we pass slug on submit and current user. So that's basically it. We've defined our props already. Now, the next thing we need to do is to pass in states. Now, here we have states, right? So we need to be sure that we are replicating this in exact way and it works exactly the same way. Without states, our comments in the input section will not work. So this is where we need a React hook. Now, the React hook we need here is called a use state hook. So if I go here, so you can see our application is broken because, of course, we are making some changes. if I come here and I write like, use state, right? Use state. So we go to the official React documentation and see what React documentation tells us about, handling states and using the use state hook, right? So before we could we define states like this, pass a constructor, divide inside the constructor because it's the class component and it uses classes, object-oriented programming. We do a super, so it's inherited outside of the constructor. Then we pass a states, object. So these are states, we pass an object and we pass it the body. So React hooks do it a little bit different, right? All you need to do is have a setter and you have your name for your states and you pass whatever states you need inside the use states component. Inside the use states, what they call it, objects or method rather, method. Now, I will have to come here. So let's just do a const. So let's call this, so just to make sure that we are meeting the exact syntax for writing it. So let's just be sure. Let me see where the definition of the syntax is. So basically, this is the syntax: const your setter and your setter method and your state name, then the use state hook. That's basically the correct syntax. Now, so let's say we have the name of our states here is body. That's the only state we have. So we name this body and pass a comma, then call it set. No, sorry, that's not set. Set body, right? So this is going to be the setter method. This is the method we use to set states. Now, we want to put it an equals to, and we do a use state, and we pass it empty. Because initially, if you look at it here, body is empty initially, right? It's an empty state initially. So we have to set the state ourselves, right? Now, if you come here, my editor did this automatically. You need to add so where we imported React, you need to pass in the use state object here and the from, then React. That's the best way. So if you need to use another hook, you have to put a comma, then add the name of the hook, and you're good to go. So my editor does this for me, automatically, so I don't have to do it myself. Now that we've set our states, so let's just, it's really good to comment your code. But let's just say here, define props using destructuring. Then here we set initial state using React.js use state. Okay, so this is basically what we've done so far, right? And the next thing we need to do is to make sure that these functions that our component needs to work is available. So we're going to take it bit by bit. So the first function we want to recreate is the set body function. Now, since our getter method here, our setter method here is set body, so I want to change this to something else. So I like to give two space between functions and components. I like to give a space between function and component just so we have really nice code. So we call these set state method. Set impute body method. Set impute body function. So we call this so we have to do a const since we are no longer using we're no longer in a class component. So now we can just create functions the way we create functions. So I love to create function using by setting a constant and passing the functions to it. That's my favorite way of creating functions. You can still use the function keyword if you want, but personally I love doing this because it just it makes the code clean. So let's call this set body set state. No, let's call it set impute body. Yeah, let's call it set impute body. One of the most hardest thing in programming is actually naming things. So I pass it just like we did it before. Pass an arrow function, pass this, and this is the first part of our function. So let's give one more space just so there's coordination. So inside here, we are setting the states here by passing the value of the input, the value of the input to the body, right? So that's basically what we are doing. So that's basically what we are doing. So let's replicate this, right? So let's call this, so let's pass in the EV, which is the parameter for this, for this function. Then we use the set state method, which is set body method. So let's call set body, which is this here we've defined. And let's go back to the way it's been done here. So it's basically just going to be in a, in a bracket, right? So this way we'll do our state change. So let's say state body, we pass this function, this method here, then we pass this method here, then we say body. So we set body, then we pass body. Just to be sure, let me just confirm that. Yeah. Then we pass body. Right? So we are passing the state directly. Like if you go to see how it's done here, we are setting the body to EV dot target dot value. So let's just make sure we are doing it correctly. So body is, just be sure we are doing this the right way. So body is actually EV dot target dot value. Let's hope I'm doing this the right way, right? Oh, the typecast is wrapped in parentheses. So let's do it like this. Let's do it like this. So this is basically the first thing we need to do. We are passing our body to use the EV dot target dot value, right? That's basically what we are doing. That's basically what we are doing right now. Just to be sure, let's check how it's being done again. So let's just be sure that we are doing it the right way. Let's read how it's being done here, just to be sure. I love to read documentation to make sure that, hey, I know exactly what I'm doing. I'm doing it the right way. I'm not making any mistakes, right? So yeah. So technically, based on how it's being done here, you don't need to pass a body because the body has access to the set body, to the state already. The set body sets the state. We don't need exactly to write the body again. So let's scrap that. So EV the target the value is all we need because the set body is a setter function for certain states, right? Setter method for certain states already. So we don't need anything else other than that. Now, next up is, so we are now done with this particular function, which sets input body function. And the next thing we need to do is the create comment function, which is a very complex function, and we need to be very, very careful. So let's add this create comment function. So let's call this, of course, create comment. Then the normal way we create functions using, so we go back here and see, okay, so this particular function is an asynchronous function, right? We need the process to run asynchronously. It takes an event value, and of course we don't want it to reload, which is why we do event. So when we submit the comments, we don't want it to reload the application. So this is why we do EV prevent default. So prevent default basically prevents your browser from carrying out the default action when an event is created. So we want it to do exactly what we want. We don't want it to do what is default, defaultly made to do. So just going to copy this here, right? So we don't have to write it ourselves. EV prevent default. We have to pass in the EV, parameter here. Now, the next thing we need to do is to, of course, pass it. So let's just, no, I don't want to copy this. I don't want to confuse you guys. So I'm just going to do it bit by bit. So the next thing we need to do is to do agent. So sorry, not here. So we need to do agent dot, how is it convened here? Agent dot comments, not comments, dot create. Dot create, then you open your braces because create, ATE. Just should be careful. This is how bugs are formed. Just to be careful. Just to be careful. So you look at the code over and make sure that we are not making any mistakes. Just make sure that we are actually not making any single mistake. So I like to look over it over and over again, just to be sure. And next up is my favorite part, right? So inside the create function, we have this dot props method. Yeah, it's basically method, the function. We have this dot prop dot slug, so which takes in the slug, and also another callback function, which takes in the body where we are setting the states, then a promise, which basically submits the pay based on what the promise returns, based on what the payload what this create function returns, so which is the comment itself. Now, so let's be sure we are doing this the right way. So this does this, then this does this. Okay. So where is this coming from? From the constructor. Okay, so we don't need that anymore. So since we already have our props defined here, right, we do not need to do this dot props dot slug. So what we just need to do is to do slug, and we check here, slug is highlighted because we have used the slug. So the next thing is to write the callback function, which does this, and this, which is pretty perfect, right? So that's exactly what it does here. So now we need to pass body, which is our state here, and we need to use this. I didn't say, so we need to pass body. Then we need to use set body because we want the set state. We want to set the state of the body here. So set body. So set body. So we are setting the state also here. The body, the set of the components inputs, right? The inputs where the components, gets what they call it, written, where these comments get written. So that's where we need to set the state. So body, right? If we go down here again, then we have a promise. So we do a dot then, which is the callback after the promise is resolved. So the callback to resolve the promise. So basically takes in the payload, that's the payload, then it takes in a callback function. Right? Just to be sure. Okay. We're doing this the wrong way. Okay. So it just takes in the function to resolve the promise. Not written promises in a long time. It's shaky. So here we are basically just assigning the props to the payload, right? So we're basically submitting the payload to be rendered on the screen, right? So we come back here and do just look through this again. So this is exactly what we need, just this. I'm just going to copy this, I don't have to write it, and voila. So we are done with our most complex comments ever, right? So let's just clear up the white spaces. So let's just be sure. Then we also have one more thing to do, right? Instead of comment, we used to also set the final state. So empty, right? We need to set the state, the final state. So we would come here and just below this function to resolve the promise, we do set body, and that's pretty much it. We have recreated exactly what this comment says here. What this function does here, we created it, right? So, but we need to be sure that we test it, right, to be sure that our code works. So I'm just going to delete this. Just going to delete this since we don't need them anymore, right? I'll also take this, and when I'm done with this, I just want to copy and paste it. Now, the next thing we need to be sure of is we need to copy exactly what this does here. I'm just going to copy this entire return statement here. What's in the, just going to do this, copy it, then replace this with this, right? Great. So now we need to be sure that this particular the way the function is being used, the way the state is being set matches exactly how it should be, right? So the next thing we need to do is to delete this. We don't need this anymore. We're no longer doing writing, doing object-oriented programming. We're not doing functional programming. So we don't need this anymore. So as you can see, this create comment already shows us that yes, it can find this function, which is the function we just finished setting, right? We don't need this. When did this change? This is supposed to be this. This is supposed to be this. Just to be sure, it's supposed to be this. Can you guys see what is wrong? Can you guys see what's wrong? This is what is wrong. Just a comma, which is why. Can you guys see what's wrong here? Now, the reason why we are having this issue here is because, let's just be sure, it expects an expression and not a function. That's my bad. Yeah, pretty much it. That's pretty much it. So the create function, so let's be sure we know exactly what is going on. So let's search for the agent. Let's search for the agent. Let's see where agent is coming from, the /agent. So let's see if you can find this. Okay, agent.js. All right. So let's find this, right? Just to be sure we are doing it the right way. So the agent.comments. Okay. Agent is a exported function. It takes items, and that items returns an object. Now, comments is also an object that has a method that has three methods: create, delete, and for items. So we're using the create object. It takes in a slug, which can be a type of any, and takes in the comment itself, which can be also a type of any. So it could be a function, it could be a string, it could be a number, it could be basically anything, right? And here we want to set the state of the comments based on what is in the state object we've created above. So this is basically why we are doing this. So let's just go up and be sure create, yes. So create takes in a slug, also takes in the comments, then it makes a request and gets the comments based on what we've specified as the object, right? As the comment itself. Now we're on the right track. Okay, so back to what we were doing. Create comments basically is us rendering that, okay, on submit, which is an attribute of the form element, on submit, we want it to run the create comment function, which is this function we just finished creating. Now, the next thing is, okay, this is all good, this is all JSX. Now, value, right? Value, since we are not handling states the way we used to handle states, we're not using React components, all we just need to do is to call the name of the states here. So body, right? And on change, And on change, we want to also set body, right? We want to basically set the body of the state. So all we need to do on here is to set the state. So on change, we need to be like, we need to be changing the state at every single time. We need to be changing the state. So because then when you write comments is per character. So every single time you write a different character inside the comment box, state changes. Basically, that's what is going on here. Now, we also need to make sure that the prop definition is correct. So we do current user, we clear this. We also need to make sure that the current this is also correct. We clear this. And that's pretty much it, right? Let's hope we actually solve the quest correctly. So like I always say, the first thing you need to do after this, after you're sure that your code works, so let's test the code, right? So let's run this back. Oh, there's an error, 17.9, send input body. So this should be set input body. Okay, that was the error. So if I should refresh this, let's just be sure that our code works. So I write this, fingers crossed. Hello, this is a Wilco Stan account. I'm a Wilco Stan account. And let's click on post comments. And okay, something is wrong. Our comment is supposed to show here. So we are not setting states correctly. So let's go back to our terminal and see what it tells us. Okay, so it's telling us that set input body is assigned a value but never used, blah, blah, blah. Set input body is assigned a value but never used, blah, 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 all of this. So it's failing to compile. So let's go back to our code. 19. So set input body is failing, right? Set input body is failing. So how do we solve this problem? Just to be sure we are doing this the right way. So how do you guys think we should solve this particular problem? So we need to check. We need to be sure. We need to check that everything actually works the way it's supposed to be. So let's refresh again and see if this will solve our problem. Let's try this. So let's delete this. Let's delete this. Let's delete this. So let's say hi. So the post comment works, but it's not getting our payload, right? Our comment is not being displayed. So that's the problem now. We just need to see exactly why our comment is not being displayed. So what do you guys think would be the solution to this issue? Just need to be sure. Just need to be sure. So what do you guys think? You can drop your ideas in the comments to see how we can solve this particular issue. So should be from here, right? Should be set input body. Set input body. Let's go back to our state object and see if we are doing it the right way. So we have body, right? We have set state, set body, and we have the use state, right? This is basically it. Then we also have set input body, which basically sets the body of the state of the body, right? That's basically what we have. Now, the next thing is we are having a function here. We are creating a function. We are preventing the default behavior of the submit key. And we have the agent, comment, create, takes in a slug, then the body of our, then the comments, basically, the body of our comments. Then then we then takes in a payload, then also an on submit function, right? Then here we are also setting the state. All good, this all works. Now the next thing is we are doing an on submit, create comments, text area, the value based on that's the value of the state. The on change should be the set input body, the row 3, Then for the image source, which is the current user prop dot image, alt current user dot username, post comment, and pretty much we are right on track. So I cannot see the error. Is there somebody seeing something I cannot see? Let me know. Let me know in the comments. Okay. Thanks, Matt. Okay, so I'm setting body here, which is very, very, very wrong. So thank you for that. Let's see if that is our problem, right? So let's call this body. Let's see if that works. So let's refresh this. Let's delete this. Let's see if our terminal is yelling at us again. Okay, so doesn't shout at us anymore. So compile successfully. So let's run. I think we fixed this. So run the comments and voila, we fixed this. So it was just a simple error here, and I think it's my fault. It should be, so since we're setting the body, the object should actually receive a body, which is a state. So I was actually setting the state there, which is set with the setter function, instead of passing the state itself, the state object itself, which is the body, right? Which is the comment itself. So that's my error, and this is the wonder of writing code. You make very, very silly mistakes, and you spend like 5 hours trying to fix something you cost yourself, and it's just obviously looking at you, which is why sometimes my best way of debugging things when I'm writing code is to get an extra pair of eyes, get someone else to look at it for you, and they will definitely see what you are not seeing, right? So thanks, Matt, for dropping that, that tip. So now our comments section works. So yay for us, we fixed the issue, and I am very, very relieved. Now Nest is not going to yell at us, and we're actually going to be able to finish this quest. So go back to your terminal and just make sure that we finish up. So like I always advise, before you submit any code, we do a yarn run format, just so we meet, all the, we are able to pass the lints tests. We're able to pass the lints, chest test, the lint test on GitHub. So we do a git. Okay, so since this branch, one other issue we're going to have is we need to create another branch, because we've merged the PR to this branch, and we need to create a fresh branch so Nest can actually review it properly for us. So let's do that right now. So since I have not committed anything here, the best way to actually do is, which is something a lot of people don't know about, is to do a git switch -c. So let's call this hooks of change solution 2. Let's call this hooks of change solution 2. So basically what this command does is it's going to take all the changes we've made in the previous branch and migrate it for us to the next branch we're creating. So if I run this, it has created all the branches. So if I do a git status, sorry, can you see my screen well? So exactly what the changes we've made is still exactly what we can see in this new branch. It's a very, very sweet solution, and it saves my life all the time, because I do not always remember that I need to create a branch, right? So let's just do a git add dot, then we do a git commit -m. Let's just refactor the comment input solution, input component into a functional component using React hooks. Now, let's just do a git push origin solution -2. So this will create a new branch for us. This will give us a link to create a new branch. So I'm just going to copy this URL, go back to my web browser, paste the URL here and put great. Okay, so just going to copy this, refactor, comment input to done using React hooks, using React. Let's rename this again, using React hooks. So let's make this short so our pull request name doesn't look so long. So let's just do this using React hooks, React components to use React hooks. So let's just call this space. Then you can use the dot backtick here to make it look cool. And we create a pull request. So while we are creating for it, we need to make sure that, Ness has seen it. So let's go back to anything. And she's like, thanks, I'll review the changing slide today. Wait for 1 hour again, just to be sure that, let's just hope we actually pass the test. So fingers crossed on that. So while we are waiting, if you have any question you want me to answer, or you have something you don't understand, please feel free to let me know, and I will do so I'll do well to answer your question, So please let me know. And if you're enjoying the stream, say, yeah, I'm enjoying the stream. So let's just wait for, to finish loading. Okay, so yay, both our checks have passed, and we have solved the first, the second part of the question, which is probably the last part. So let's just be sure. And let's go back to Ness. And she said, excellent job, Shedrack. Go ahead and merge the PR. So let's just merge the PR and see. So merge pull request, confirm merge, and awesome. We have now successfully confirmed made merge, so we can just delete this branch because we don't need it anymore. And we go back to anything, and great job. We still have a lot of work ahead of us, so click here once you're ready for the next challenge. Okay, and that's pretty much it. We have gone ahead to solve the hooks of change quest. So let's be sure we've done it. Let's look at if the white dashboard doesn't. And yeah, we have finished this quest, which is pretty good. And it was really, really exciting learning process for us. We learned about a couple of things. We learned about how to, refactor class components in React using refactor class components in React to functional components. We also learned about how to, migrate legacy code into, without breaking anything. We also learned about how to use React state hooks. There are a whole lot of other, hooks that you can use if you go to the React documentation. Let me just share the hooks documentation with everyone here.
Sorry, I did.
With everyone here. So this documentation would help you learn React hooks. This is like the best. Okay. So let me just share this link in the chat. Okay, just share this. But one thing I always advise you is before you do this, I want you to read the motivation behind React hooks, so you know exactly when and why you should use it, right? So it's very, very important to know the motivation behind something before you actually use it in your code base. So just to go over the summary again, for this stream, we were able to solve the React hooks challenge or quest, and we learned a couple of things, right? We learned about how to destructure, props. We learned how to, create functional components. We learned how to migrate class components into functional components. We learned how to use the React to use state hook to set states in our functional components. And we also learn how to, debug how to debug and solve a particular bug. And we learned how to, create a new branch, learned how to comment our code, because that's like a very, very important thing. So anybody else that comes to this code and wants to know exactly what's going on, create comment function, define props during destructuring, set initial state using React.js use state. So anybody, if a new employee comes in and wants to work on this code, they know exactly what does what. So this is like really, really good practice. And I want to thank every single one of you for joining me, interacting with me, gisting with me, hear me rant about, certain types of things about React. So I'm looking forward to seeing everyone next time. Very, very soon, we're having another, stream like this. It's going to be like, very, very consistent. It's going to be very, very frequent. We're going to, solve quests together. The next stream might be someone in the community coming up to solve a quest with me. We need to make this like, really, really interactive, making sure everybody learns from it. And I am super excited about, going on with this stream. And yeah, that's pretty much it, man. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining. I hope you guys enjoyed yourself. I hope you guys learned a thing or two, and see you all next time.